Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? I tend to speak quickly, so interpreters, if I'm going too fast, just flag me down. You will not offend me at all. Okay? Tonight we're going to talk about executive functioning. And executive functioning covers a lot of different materials and different neural pathways within the brain. The QR codes that you're going to notice up there, if they put in a share request for the presentation, I will update those afterwards. That was set up by a coworker of mine, and I didn't know it would ask me to give permission first, so I will share those out. The QR codes will also link you towards the survey at the end, so you can fill those out as you're ready. Executive functioning is the umbrella term that neuroscientists use to discuss how our brains organize information and motivate us to do what we need to do. It's involved with every single thing that we do, from planning ahead to regulating emotions to being able to be flexible when you're thinking or problem solving. All of those things involve our executive functions. When we start to develop as humans, right about 5 or 6 years old, we start having a little bit more increase in our inhibition. As we grow until about the mid-20s, sometimes late 20s, the frontal lobe, which is where all the executive functions are housed, continue to develop, which is why you get teenagers jumping off of buildings and off of ladders because they thought it would be fun, without thinking, hey, I'm going to fall and get hurt. Okay. So, is that too loud or is that easier? Charlie, will that give feedback with this? Okay. Is this a little better for everybody in the back? All right, my apologies then. The brain continues to develop deep into adulthood, and students with ADHD or executive functioning deficits, that age range actually increases, and we're going to get impediments in their development in terms of their executive functioning. What I want to show with this is, if you notice the frontal lobe here, everything that is involved with that, starting with the executive functioning, reasoning, memory, problem solving, judgment, those are going to be the big areas that when you have an executive functioning deficit is going to be affected most visibly. Like I said earlier, executive functioning is just the umbrella term for all of our mental processes that help manage emotions and self-regulation. So, how does it impact our children, our students? I'm going to break this down into a couple different areas so we can talk about each piece individually. So, working memory. Working memory is the ability to hold information in your mind to be able to use it for a purpose, whether it's writing down assignments, remembering to grab your lunch out of the fridge, or in my case, remembering to grab your car keys before you walk out of the door and try and come to school. The human brain can hold anywhere from 3 to 4 important, meaningful pieces of information in your short-term memory. That is it. It's very limited in capacity. So we need to make sure that when we are working with our strategies, that we help try and group things together. So what I wanted to do was to show you how quickly the working memory gets overloaded. So I want you to take a look at that picture, and I want you to think about all the details that you can see. I'm going to give you 15 seconds, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Go. Okay. How many chairs were in the picture? 4. What colors were the chairs? How many people were in the picture? What color was the tablecloth? What color is the tablecloth? There you go. What color was the bike? Where was the bike? What color was the car? What color or what was the parents' footwear? What was the mother's footwear? Okay, so sandals. And I could go on, but what happens, sorry, I'm a wanderer when I present, so being stuck here is really tough. The working memory, when it gets overloaded, you lose things. You cannot hold on to them. You cannot keep them and work with them. When teachers are giving directions to kids and everyone's understanding and the teacher goes, all right, guys, let's get started. And every single kid checks out. That's because you've overloaded their working memory. And the last thing they're paying attention to is the teacher that said, okay, let's get started. And they forget what they're supposed to start. So those deficits appear in our students and kids as forgetting assignments, forgetting materials, losing things, forgetting parts, or in my son's case, all of the directions. But there are ways to help. Now, these strategies that I'm going to share are ones that are done within our classrooms and are ones that you can successfully do at home if your own children have executive functioning deficits. You're going to want to avoid simultaneous processing. This is more of a teacher one. That is asking kids to listen and to take notes at the same time. You got to think about your purpose. Do you want the students to listen or do you want them to write? Pick one to simplify what you're asking them to do instead of having them do both. You're going to teach step-by-step instructions. Use visuals if you can. I've got examples of some of the visuals that we use within the district with some of our lower functioning students in our life skills classrooms. It can be as simple as a calendar for when you're doing your logbook, or a stop sign with young kids if you need them to stop in line or stop talking. You're going to leave visual references. They can stay up on the wall permanently like a classroom schedule or a bell schedule for our older students, or it can be something like a checklist that's on the student's desk that is left there permanently that's done in dry erase marker. Written or picture directions can be paired with oral instruction, which is different than the simultaneous processing because you're just asking them to focus on one piece. You're not asking them to do two separate things. And then you're going to externalize everything. One of the more prominent and well-known ADHD researchers, Dr. Barkley, says that you need to make everything that is internal, external for people with executive functioning deficits. Timers, reminders, visual schedules, everything has to be outside and external. Otherwise, it gets lost. They can't focus on it enough. They can't remember to do it. So making it external, behavior charts, stars, stickers, all that stuff, the motivators, the schedules, keeping it outside of them as something they can visually reference is going to be a huge boost for them. So, other things that we can do. We're going to reword our instructions to keep them short. Pick up your bag. Laundry goes in the hamper. Put the date on the paper. And then you're going to pause and give that time to be thought about and to happen. Okay? You're going to ask the students to reflect back. Hey, I just gave you directions. Can you tell me what I said? And if they can't, then you know where to start. And if they can, you know you can move on. Okay? Allow periods of time for review. Just give them a little bit to process, to think, and to re-instruct if you need to or retell them. Provide memory aids and visual supports. Again, we're making it external. Things like posters, schedules, dictionaries, anything that we can give them to be successful needs to be external. We're going to present our concepts in a variety of ways, through projects, through lecture, through reading, through audiobooks, anything that gets them engaged and being able to manipulate that information in new ways. And then we're going to have the students visualize the concept and put a picture with it. This is really helpful with younger students when they grasp when they're first starting to grasp a concept, getting that visual representation makes it concrete and external, which is very helpful. Because students with executive functioning deficits can't always make a picture in their mind. They just don't have that capability. So having something external is going to help quite a bit. A good way to remember that, or with another strategy, is called CARS. It stands for chunking, so taking large amounts of information and breaking it down into smaller, more succinct, manageable pieces. We're going to allow for success. Make the tasks smaller so the kids can be successful. We're going to repeat as necessary the directions and the opportunities for success. And then the S for sensory means we're going to make it as multi-sensory as possible. Have them move things with the schedule. Have them see things, hear things, instead of just sitting there listening to directions from mom and dad or the teacher. The next piece of executive functioning is mental flexibility. There's a lot of new research that's starting to come out about mental flexibility and some pretty cool things that can be done to help support that in students. So mental flexibility is the ability to create a roadmap towards a task. So planning for the future, whether it's a project, what you're going to do after school, what you're going to do when your homework's done at home, or getting ready for the day. All of those things require planning and prioritizing. Students with executive functioning deficits are going to have difficulty from everything from carrying out long-term projects to getting ready for the day. Having to get ready for the day requires getting out of bed, getting dressed, showering if you shower in the morning, brushing your teeth, picking out clothes, and getting out of the door at a certain time, which for people with executive functioning deficits is a lot to manage in one situation. They'll have difficulty prioritizing and deciding what needs to happen first, whether it's something like I said, getting ready in the morning, taking notes in class, being able to differentiate what's important from what is not, okay? Being able to make and follow a timeline for projects or homework. I know my kids, when they have a project, they always wait till the last second. They come by that naturally because I did the same thing. But it's that making a plan. They're not able to take a whole idea or a whole project and break it down into meaningful goals. They just wait for the last minute because there's nothing external reminding them like, hey, your project's due in 3 weeks. We got to get rolling. Hey, your project's due in 2 weeks. It's, hey, Dad, I've got a presentation tomorrow and I need 40 slides in Google Slides about the Delaware Native American tribe. Can you help me? That was a very fun evening. And they also can't take notes. So how can we help them? Things like providing checklists, develop planning tools, whether it's a whole sequence of things that they need to get done with Post-it notes, and as they finish it, they can take that Post-it note off. They can scratch it off a checklist. We're going to walk them through the benchmarking procedure. So, hey, you've got a big project in 2 weeks. What are we going to do by the end of this week? Okay, you want to get that much done. Okay. What about the end of tonight? What do you want to have done at the end of class? You want to manage everything and whittle everything down into baby steps, or as my son likes to call them, little steps, because as you do little steps at a regular interval, it takes you through the entire process. You can get to where you need to go, you just need to do it in smaller, more manageable pieces. One of my favorite things to do are external or visual timers. You can get them online. And it looks like a clock face, and it's got red. And as the timer gets closer to 0, there's less red. You can get them with and without buzzers. So if you don't need anything distracting anyone at home, you can just throw it up where the kids will see it and walk away. It gives that external reference for time. Students who struggle with flexibility and adaptability are easily upset when things don't go their way. They get caught off guard by surprises, and they don't handle change well. We can teach them things that will help and help break them out of that. First, we need to get them comfortable, because when you have students who have flexibility concerns and issues, they get a lot of anxiety. So we're going to be consistent first. We're going to follow a schedule and a routine to get them comfortable and relaxed and knowing what to do. Once that anxiety has been handled, then we are going to start adding in little bits of things that force them to be flexible. Hey guys, we're going to turn off the devices in 5 to 10 minutes. Class, you have anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes to get your papers sorted before the bell rings. Okay? The other thing you can do is you can have some sort of signal if there's going to be a change. So in a classroom, it can be like this says, a sign that says surprise. It doesn't say what the change is, but it's a good visual reminder of, okay, what strategies have we been practicing to be ready for an unexpected change? And those can be implemented right away. When we talk about flexibility, there are two main things, two main deficits that we tend to see. The first is people will get stuck in their ways. They don't think about it, it becomes automatic, and they just do. The second is when people are not able to think outside the box to problem solve. And I found two commercials or two videos that directly show that. So this first one is going to be someone who is just stuck in their ways.
Geico makes car insurance easy.
That's right. Me too.
As easy as saying the wrong thing.
Me too. Really?
What? Dad, why would you say that?
Why would you say that? Do I look like I'm going on vacation, son?
That's not how airports work, man.
You could?
Dad!
Are we leaving or?
I don't even want to go on vacation anymore.
I thought I knew you.
She has hairspray that is over the limit.
With an app that puts your policy in your pocket, it's easy.
So, did we see how he got stuck in his ways? How many times have we gone to a restaurant and the server says, enjoy your meal, and you say, you too. And then like you get home later and you like freeze because you told someone who's not eating with you to enjoy their meal? That's one version of the inflexibility. The other is going to be a lack of flexible problem solving.
Geico makes car insurance easy.
Okay, so we're going to try this again. Miss Jelkin, can I ask that you stop the first video from playing when I click through? Just take the mouse and pause it.
Geico makes car insurance easy.
Okay, so we're paying attention to the bottom video now.
Both of them?
No, leave the bottom one playing, please. Thank you.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Telephone.
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are two people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna try.
Well, it's not enough left to do.
Hello? Hey, don't worry about it. I'll fix it in a second.
He said he can fix it. All right. All right. That's more like it. He says he can fix it.
So both of those videos show how a lack of mental flexibility can sometimes humorously and sometimes negatively impact a student or a child's life or an adult's life. So there are a couple things that we can do to help teach flexible thinking. And this is where some of the new research is coming out, and it's really kind of cool. The first is we're going to teach them or help them resist what we call an inattentional blindness. And basically what that means is not able to see outside of what they expect or what they know. We can do that by having fewer conclusions. We're going to ask open-ended questions and let them think. As a parent and as a teacher, I've had to guide both my students and my children to what I need them to get to and what I need them to decide, but I'm railroading them into a set conclusion. So I'm actually taking away their flexibility and their ability to make their own decisions as they think through. We're going to do that. We're going to help them get it back by using less restrictive language. We're going to ask more open-ended, broad questions, and we're going to give them wait time, the ability to think before they answer. The other one that is actually a lot of fun is called divergent thinking. So there are two activities that I've done both in the classroom and with my own kids to kind of teach people to think outside of their own box. The first is called This Is Not, and the second is alternative representations, or taking someone else's point of view. So This Is Not is an activity that works on creative thinking. You would give the student, your children, an everyday common object that they would have an experience with. So for example, for me, I see that and I know that's an egg beater. Our kids might not know it's an egg beater, but for us, it'll work. So I would hold it up and I would say, this is not an egg beater. This is an automatic kite string winder. Thinking of a creative and new way to use that item. Or this is not an egg beater. This is a bubble bath stirring wand. It gets them to think outside of that restrictive definition of what they have. I've done it with middle school with success, elementary with success, and with some high schoolers as well. You just have to pick an item that's appropriate for them. The other one is alternative or expanding perspectives. And this helps people see an event from someone else's point of view. Sometimes with that mental flexibility deficit, people get locked into their point of view and their expectations, and that is it. So what you can do is take a story like The Three Little Pigs and tell it from the wolf's point of view. If you haven't read that story, it's really good. And it forces the kids to think outside of their expectations and outside of their box in a new way. The other one is Seriously, Cinderella is So Annoying. It's newer, it's pretty amusing, and you don't have to have a book to do this. Take a nursery rhyme or a story that your kids know and ask them to tell it from a different character's point of view. Okay? So if you think of like Hey Diddle Diddle, have them tell a story from the fork and spoon's point of view. Or the cow that jumped over the moon. Why was the cow doing that? Take away those barriers of what they already know and allow them to be more creative and think outside the box. One of the other big deficits is organization. So organizing is just the ability to maintain and keep things where they need to be, whether it's a schedule, whether it's materials, whatever you need. It's something that we don't just teach once. It's something that we're going to need to instruct in and remind over and over and over again, because it is a skill as the brain develops that will also develop with them. So it looks like kids that have a messy desk, backpack, room, papers are just shoved in there, the notebooks are not organized, they can't find the stuff that they're looking for, whether it's in their room or in the car, or left at school, or left at home. They can't keep track of where everything is to be able to find it and use it. It also has implications when they are writing at school, because they can't organize what they're doing to be able to get coherent thoughts down on paper. So, things that we can do that will help that. Going back to making it external and as visual as possible. We're going to use checklists. Okay, getting ready for the day. Do you have your backpack? Coat, shoes, water bottle. Yes? All right, let's go. Or with my coworker, do you have your keys, your phone, and your ID? Okay, now we can go. Okay? You can teach students to use apps on their phone. Both Android and Apple have a lot of free organizational apps. Things like their Post-it note apps, Google Calendar, All those things that will help take information from all sorts of different sources and put it into a system that works for your child or for the student. In the classroom, you can do things like making sure the due dates are written on the top of each assignment. You can have a clean out your folder or clean out your bag day, as many and as frequently as necessary as well. You can try different organizational systems, color coding folders, having the same color folder but different tabs, or I've had students that needed a different binder for each subject and we got the little 1/2-inch binders. Every student will probably need a slightly different system, but once you find one that works, reinforce it, have them use it, and then yourself be flexible for if it stops working, finding something new that will help them out. Some of the technology pieces that are used within the district are Google Keep, Google Calendar. Google Calendar syncs with both the Google Drive and the Google Drive, or your Gmail can also sync with Google Calendar. So does Google Keep. So there are a lot of things that you can use that's already within the district. Time management is another thing that people with executive functioning struggle with. It's the ability to, again, plan. Figure out how much time something is going to take to complete, whether it's a project, a chore, an assignment, a game, and being able to stay within that mental timeline. Students with time management deficits are going to have difficulty completing things on time. They're going to miss deadlines completely. They're going to have difficulty estimating how long something will take. So, like the presentation that my children worked with, telling me at the last minute that they had 40 slides to do when it was the night before. Not a good idea of how long something was actually going to take. They also can't adjust to fit in new tasks or changes in their schedule. So once everything is locked in and they've got their mind set, adding in new things or, hey, we got that done early, we can do something else, you're going to derail that train, cause frustration, and cause them potentially to just freeze and kind of lock up. So, things that we can do to help people with time management issues. We can teach them to use calendars either on their phone, on the wall, their planner for school. At home, we have a month calendar with dry erase boards underneath it, so we can have a list of things that are going to be fun to do, or we call the bucket of yuck, which are things that just have to get done. And as we do them, we let the kids strike them off so they can see how much has been done. And then the calendar we have is color-coded, so my stuff is in one color for the month, my wife's is in the other, the kids' doctor's appointments are in a different color, our clubs are in a different color. So at a glance, the kids look up and they're like, no, we had bath last night, we don't need to do bath tonight. Well, let's look at the calendar, and we can go and have an external visual for them to go, okay, we'll do bath. So it takes away the ability to guess and the ability to get locked in, and it keeps it visual to help them keep track of what they are doing. Breaking long assignments into chunks goes back to CARS that I talked about earlier. Take something that is big and abstract and potentially unmanageable and put it into smaller, more manageable, concrete pieces. The last big thing that we're going to talk about is persistence. So sustained focus is the ability to just pay attention to a task or person over time. When we have kids or children that tune out after you've been talking to them for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, that's going to be a sign that we've got to work on building up their endurance. Okay, it's also going to see when they sit down and do homework and they can't do homework. They sit for 10, 15 minutes and they're already sweating, they're itching to go, they can't stick with it. They get overwhelmed if you give them too much at once. So if I tell my kids, okay, we've got to do your spelling homework, we've got to do your reading homework, we're going to work on a little bit of math, and then you've got bath tonight, and on top of that you left a mess in the rec room, you're going to need to go and clean that up before you get your game time at the end of the night. I've completely lost them because I've maxed out their working memory. I have taken them outside of what they expected their schedule to be, and I'm throwing a... So we're going to need to find ways to work around that to help them out. One of the things that the research is showing that helps is working in regular, frequent breaks. The magic number for a lot of people that I've seen is 10 minutes on task, 3-minute break. I'll bring in a timer and I will tell the student, and I've done this in middle school and elementary, we're going to start with how long you can work. So I had a student that was able to work on task for about 2 minutes. So we started at 2 minutes. I wanted them to be successful. So the second that 2-minute timer went off, they got a 1-minute break. There was no, all right, hey, let's finish that problem or finish that sentence. It's no, that timer went off, you get your break. Put the pencil down, step up, close the Chromebook, you're good to go. That break also had a timer. And the minute that timer for the break went off, they were back on task. It takes training and it takes practice and patience. But now that same student is now doing 25 to 35 minutes on task with a 3-minute break, and he is 100% independent. He knows to set his own timers. He works. When the timer goes off, he sets his timer for the break. When that goes off, he's back on task. And it's completely independent and flexible, because as he starts meeting with success and he's able to do more, we are going to increase that timer. So he started with 2 minutes on task. A couple days later, we pushed it to 2.5. About a week later, we tried 4. And we just did those incremental growths to keep him successful, but still pushing him to achieve more independently. If we had a hiccup, which we did a couple times, you step it back. So if he was at, let's say, 5 minutes, and at 4 minutes he was gone, he wasn't able to attend, then we would adjust the timer because we want him to be successful. You're going to keep activities and lessons focused and purposeful. Kids know when you're giving them busy work, and they don't have that. So have a purpose for what you are doing. Guys, we're going to practice our paragraph writing because at the end of the month, we're going to be writing an essay. Or guys, we're going to work on our math facts because it's going to help you be more automatic when we get those longer problems. And then you can spend your time thinking about how to solve the big picture instead of 1 + 1 or 2 + 2. You're going to limit distractions, which in real life is very difficult. We have loud buildings, lots of kids, and the bells ring, especially in the middle of the day with the different grade level lunches, all the time. So you can do things like close your door when you know kids are going to be coming down the hall. And then when it's quiet again, go ahead and open it back up. Telling your kids, all right, guys, we've got 10 good minutes of time before the bells start. Let's really focus and knuckle down and get the work done now. And then when the bells start ringing, we'll kind of ease up a little bit and then get back into it. So that flexible scheduling. At home, when my oldest is doing homework, we do it up in his room with the door closed and one of us helping him as he needs it. And we keep his younger brother in the basement, if that's possible, because they're 10 and 6, so they're kind of attached at the hip. You can do things like that. You can set a family-wide homework time or quiet work time, or try and set a separate space that is just a homework space, whether it's a tray table in the corner or the dining room table or a bedroom desk. The other thing that's really helpful is keeping things novel. When things are new or different and fun, you're going to have more engagement from your kids and from the students just automatically because it's new. They haven't seen this before. Ooh, what are we going to do next? And it draws them in. So you're able to use that novelty for a decent amount of time. And then when it becomes old and boring and they start checking out, switch it up again if you can. Another part of the sustained attention and focus is impulse control. Little kids don't have a lot of it because that is one of the last parts to develop in your brain. So if you think about 2 and 1 and 3-year-olds when they throw a temper tantrum because their ice cream melted and they didn't eat it fast enough and they're kicking the ground and screaming and they haven't learned to stop, to process their feelings, and then have them become external in a meaningful way or in a safe way. A lot of stuff is tied into that. Being able to tell time. In a weird way, if you think about it, okay, I had 15 minutes to eat my ice cream. I didn't eat it in time, so it melted. Or I had an hour at home to work on my homework, but I didn't pay attention to it. I didn't get it done because I was too busy staring out the window, or I was busy playing with my Pokemon cards, or my friend called and so I was talking to them on the phone for an hour and a half and I lost all that time. All of that is related to our impulse control. We actually covered most of that. Other things, difficulty waiting your turn, interrupting others, not waiting for the instructions to be finished and just jumping in and doing what they think you're going to tell them to do. All of those are based around impulse control. So there are a few things that we can do that will help, both at home and within the classroom. One is we're going to provide structure and consistency. They will learn that if they do this, that will happen if we are consistent. If you follow directions, you can get extra stars on your behavior chart. If you were kind to your brother, you can get a little bit more dessert with dinner. If you worked hard and you got all your homework done for the week, we can go out for a movie as a family. The second one can be a little bit tougher, but it's really important. You have to praise the positive, no matter how tiny that positive is. If you've got a student or a child that is constantly mouthing off, constantly throwing things or disrupting others, and you catch them in a hot second sitting still and quiet and listening, you jump on that and you praise that. I love how you're sitting still and waiting patiently. I noticed that you didn't hit your brother when you were upset. I saw you waiting for your turn and not interrupting me when I was talking. You're going to keep it positive, and you're going to find every single thing you can praise. What the science is showing is the negative. Why'd you do that? The yelling, the pointing, the negative consequences work in the short term, but don't reinforce the expected behavior. By catching the positive, praising the positive, and rewarding the expected behavior, that is what reinforces the student's understanding of, I'm supposed to do that. The carrot, okay, I stood in line quietly and I got a sticker. I'm going to stand in line quietly again so I can get more stickers. Or I did my homework and my teacher checked off everything I had to turn in and I got an extra 5 minutes on my device on Friday. That positive reinforcement in the long run is going to be much more powerful and is going to help internalize those rewards more than the negative consequences, than the punishments. Sometimes it's harder to do because you have to constantly find a new reward that will hold their attention, but it's worth every single minute that you put into doing that. Reward the expected responses is what we talked about. And Dr. Barkley, the ADHD researcher that I talked about earlier, one of his taglines is you have to make it external. You have to make the motivation external. One of his big talking points is the difference between video games and homework. Kids can play video games, if they are gamers, for hours on end, and they can't sit for 5 minutes and do homework. The reason is those video games give constant positive feedback that requires nothing from the kids but that novelty of the new character that popped up, or the new song when they beat the level, or the new piece for their armor they got to unlock. Homework does absolutely none of that. Homework requires that planning, that internal motivation. They have to understand, if I do my homework now, my test at the end of the unit 2 weeks away, I'm going to do better. When you have executive functioning deficits, you can't plan that far ahead. So having your reward be 2 weeks out, be 2 days out, is not enough. It won't work because they can't hold that reward. Making it external catching those little tiny small steps and positives along the way is going to have a positive and eventually a massive, wonderful impact on people with executive functioning deficits. Task initiation is the ability to start things when you are supposed to start them. Hey, I asked you to get in the shower 15 minutes ago. Why are you still playing with your toys? Or, hey, we've been talking about this homework project that you were supposed to do for a couple weeks and we needed to start it 3 hours ago. Let's get that going, okay? Things like putting off long-term assignments. This one's also one that hits teachers differently as the kids get older. Finishing one task and starting the next task that is expected. You've done the math assignment in class, now you should start the writing assignment. They won't go from assignment to assignment or task to task easily. They'll need that prompting, they'll need that external reminder. Waiting for someone else to begin in group activities goes back to the time management and self-control. They're going to just jump right in and start before directions are given, or they're going to sit and wait until everyone else has started before they begin. The last one is also, as a parent and a teacher, is a little frustrating at times, to be honest. You need the cues and reminders and prompts to overlearn the routines. How many times have I told you you need to brush your teeth before you go to bed? How many times have I told you your dirty laundry needs to go in the hamper, not thrown all over your floor? How many times have I told you completed assignments go in the homework basket that's in the front of the room? How many times have I told you to put your stuff away when the bell rings instead of running out of the room and leaving it? All of those are examples of the cues that are needed to overlearn the routines. And by overlearn, we mean teaching a task or a schedule or a strategy to the point where it becomes automatic. There is no thinking required. The students and children know, okay, I've taken my clothes off, they go in the hamper. I'm getting ready for bed, I brush my teeth. Whatever that is, we have to overlearn it because we're trying to take that activity, move it from short-term memory here into the long-term memory. And again, we talked earlier, that short-term memory can only hold 3 to 4 meaningful pieces. So if you've got a kid that's trying to remember to put their laundry in the hamper, get their PJs out, pick out their clothes for tomorrow, brush their teeth, and make sure they clean up their room, we've already overloaded them instead of giving them the opportunity to succeed by breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. So things that we can do, clear and concise directions. My kids at home are getting tired of me doing almost one-word directions because they're clear. Stop. Book down. Okay? It sounds a little harsh, but you're eliminating all the extra talk. Do things like teach them when I raise my hand, we're going to be quiet. Okay, I know my one son does the quiet llama, and so his teacher holds it up, and he's trained, when this goes up, I catch a bubble. It's nonverbal, it's concise, and it's overlearned, which helps. The short, frequent dates that we talked about, that's chunking anything that takes a long period of time into smaller, more manageable pieces, and we're going to make it visual. At home, we have our fun stuff that we're doing for the weekend divided by day and time of day. Because in our house, we need to be that organized or it falls apart, which is fine, and it works for us. In the classroom, the homework log is broken down by day. You can break it down by class, by week, whatever works. We're going to design in those short breaks that we talked about earlier. We're going to keep them on task for a few minutes, break for a small amount. On task for a few minutes, break for a small amount. It's keeping them successful and keeping them from getting overwhelmed. And then again, keeping everything visual. We need it as external as possible. One of the things I wanted to close with is we as humans are not born with these skills. They develop because we have people teach us and we pick it up from the environment. When you have executive functioning deficits, sometimes just picking it up from the environment is not going to be efficient enough. You are going to need to be taught. Taught from your parents, taught from your teachers, and there's a lot of things that we can do, which I've just started to talk about with this, to help develop all of those skills for our kids. One of the things I included in the back for you behind Mr. Flugie was a resource sheet. The top item on the resource sheet is a wonderful series of videos from Dr. Barkley. That his focus is ADHD, but it is directly related to executive functioning, which is what we've talked about tonight. And a lot of the stuff I've talked about is from his research. And I included a bunch of other resources for you to kind of peruse through that include strategies for executive functioning and other things that might be helpful for you or your students or your family. So thank you very much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.